The global news cycle often presents a landscape of perpetual, uncoordinated chaos. For the collective psyche, the sheer volume of these events creates a sense of being overwhelmed by a world that appears entirely random. Mapping these events onto a celestial framework reveals a different structure. By tracking the position of the luminaries against the backdrop of measurable cycles, we find a legible geometry of collective meaning. In this context, astrology functions as a symbolic language and a calendar of archetypal patterns. It offers a way to categorize the recurring rhythms of human experience. For the week of July 5th, 2026, we are looking at specific tension points and harmonic flows. By analyzing these angles, we can read the macro dynamics of the current world stage as part of a cyclical system. This perspective shifts our internal state. Observing the world through celestial geometry provides a grounded, archetypal awareness that replaces visceral anxiety with symbolic clarity. The architecture of this week's global mood is defined by its most challenging alignments. We begin with the squares and oppositions, the primary stress points in the current celestial map. A square occurs at a 90-degree angle, representing systemic pressure and the friction required to reach a turning point. This correlates to symbolic friction between authority and public expression, reaching a structural bottleneck. This friction manifests as shifts in economic and policy tension, measuring systemic strain. Then, an opposition forms a 180-degree axis, holding two competing global narratives in suspended tension. Archetypally, this week's opposition points to sudden, reactive shifts in social sentiment. It suggests a period where the collective mood is pulled toward opposite extremes. This polarity describes a deep, psychological push and pull in the human psyche. It exposes the dualities that drive collective behavior and social discourse. These immediate tensions gain their full meaning when viewed through the multi-month cycle of the cosmic egg. The specific pressure points of this week align with a larger, slower-moving phase of this current cycle. This intersection functions as a structural pressure valve, allowing for the release of accumulated geopolitical stagnation. Situating these events within a larger cycle provides a non-deterministic framework. It allows us to process current developments without projecting fear-based outcomes. Geopolitical friction is the archetypal pressure required to force collective evolution. It is a predictable and necessary component of the global system. Parallel to these pressure points, the sky also contains cooperative, harmonic alignments. The trine forms a 120-degree angle. This geometry represents uninterrupted energetic flow, systemic stabilization, and natural harmony. Symbolically, this suggests the availability of constructive diplomatic pathways, marking areas where collaborative global problem-solving can find momentum. We also see the influence of the sextile, a 60-degree angle. While a trine represents natural ease, a sextile describes developmental opportunities that require active, conscious, collective participation in order to fully realize their potential. This harmonic geometry provides the exact structural leverage needed to deliberately stabilize the week's geopolitical tensions. When we bring these contrasting angles together, the friction of the squares and the flow of the trines, we arrive at a unified understanding of the week. Tension and harmony operate simultaneously as the synchronized engine of the global mood. They are two halves of the same architectural whole. In this system, the unified map functions as a description of archetypal weather. It is a framework for observation, distinct from a fatalistic script of world events. This geometry describes how the collective is moving through this moment. It maps the internal logic of the collective psyche as it responds to external shifts. This shift in perspective allows us to observe macro-level developments with symbolic detachment. We become observers of a pattern rather than victims of the news. Embracing this esoteric architecture provides the collective tools to navigate the vast cosmic rhythm with profound awareness and clarity.